Hey gamers, it's G from The Corner. With the Switch 2 out and about, it's been over a week since the thing's come out, and we have a somewhat sizable lineup for the remainder of the year. You know, a handful of heavy-hitting third-party ports and quite a number of Nintendo first-party offerings. There's plenty to look forward to on the console, although granted, not many games after July have really been dated yet. But besides that, you know, the Switch 2 has quite a bit going for it right now. There's plenty of games coming out. It's currently the fastest selling Nintendo console of all time. All right, that's pretty good. Honestly, I'm surprised to hear that, to be fair, but maybe they just overstocked like crazy, honestly. There's still stores in my area who have the thing in stock, despite it passing this insane milestone. However, something pretty interesting happened within a few days of the console coming out, and that being Summer Games Fest. On June 4th, June 6th, and June 8th, there were major presentations featuring a variety of third-party games, you know, the Sony show, the Jeff show, and the Xbox show, and not a lot of them got confirmed for Switch 2. Now, I think they showed the first gameplay of 007 First Light, which is coming to Switch 2. That was confirmed back at the Switch 2 Direct, but other than that, a lot of big third-party offerings just did not get a Switch 2 version confirmed, which was pretty surprising. Most of the games shown at Summer Games Fest or at the Xbox show were not given Switch 2 versions, despite getting, you know, PS5 and Xbox versions confirmed. And, you know, some games were getting Switch versions, but those were mostly the smaller indie games, which is a little worrying in my opinion. Now, some people are using the rhetoric that, oh, well, Nintendo's going to do a Direct, and that's when they'll announce that all these games are coming to the Switch 2, but that's not how this stuff works, you know? You don't wait until your presentation to say that a bunch of already known games are coming to your console. You would, you know, be announced alongside the other platform holders. Now, granted, maybe this time they want to do that because they want to be like, hey, Nintendo's going to be with everybody else, so don't be surprised when something comes to Switch 2 at other shows in the future. You know, maybe they're holding on to the announcements right now, but I don't know, I kind of doubt it. You know, there were a few really surprising games that did not get Switch 2 versions confirmed. I think the biggest surprise to me was Persona 4 Revival, announced at the Xbox show. This game's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, but not Switch 2, which it probably could run on Switch 2. I mean, the system is somewhat comparable to the Xbox Series S, so I'm surprised that there isn't a version already confirmed for it. Now, granted, Nintendo might have just not given some of these studios dev kits. I mean, granted, Sega and Atlus clearly have plenty of stuff coming to Switch 2. Actually, they probably are the biggest third party that was there at the launch, with Sonic X Shadow Generations, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, and Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, as well as the Raidou remake. I don't know what the full title is called, but that's coming out in like a few days at the time of this recording. So yeah, Sega should definitely have, you know, the announcement that, hey, P4 Remake is coming to Switch 2. Granted, you know, maybe there will be a big Atlus segment at the Direct in, well, potentially a week or two. I don't know. Some people are still thinking there's a June Direct. And, I mean, hey, Nintendo's got enough to talk about that I'm sure they could put one together. And if they do, maybe we get another late port with P3 Reload, and then we get the confirmation that P4 Revival will be coming to the system after all. But, you know, plenty of games like this. I can't really think of too many games. If anything, Nintendo was trying to scrub themselves from some of these shows. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds was featured heavily at Summer Games Fest, and this is when they confirmed that there would be a Switch 2 version of the game, but they didn't confirm it at the show itself, you know? Hey, Resident Evil 9, it's another one that got confirmed for Series S and X, but not Switch 2. And I know, like, again, bigger title, you know, like, oh, these games are, you know, really intensive, but, like, I mean, literally, Resi 4 Remake, the last Resident Evil game, was on PS4, which is, like, the 12-year-old hardware. Like, come on. There's no way that they couldn't get Resi 9 running on Switch 2. Maybe they're waiting to do a big, like, yeah, all of them are coming to Switch 2, and for real, not cloud versions, you know? But, man, it's lame. It's very lame, honestly. I was expecting to see some heavy hitters announced for Switch 2 at the time of the reveals. Oh my gosh, COD. They ended the Xbox show with Call of Duty Black Ops 7, which, by the way, worst one more thing I've ever seen at any E3-esque show. Jesus, you really ended the show by saying, guess what? There's gonna be another COD this year, and it's literally named the exact same thing as the one from last year. That was pathetic, genuinely, but like, didn't they say COD was coming to Nintendo? I mean, again, that's something that I think Nintendo probably wants to bring up in a Direct. But, like, really? Like, they wouldn't just outright say it's coming to Switch 2 because, like, they already confirmed it's coming to PlayStation and Xbox. So, like, whatever, man. Again, the next Direct, I think, will really be telling of if Nintendo actually secured the bag this time or if we're getting basically the same thing we got with the Switch 1. You know, it's funny, right? Because, like, the big third-party heavy hitters I'm thinking of that are on Switch 2 at launch or, you know, pretty shortly thereafter, Cyberpunk 2077, Street Fighter 6, Elden Ring, and Final Fantasy VII Remake, you know, some of the biggest games of the last 5 years. And then if you look back to the Switch 1, I mean, they were headlining it with games like Skyrim and Doom 2016, you know, some of the biggest games of the last 5 years in 2017. So, like, really, I'm worried we're going to be dealing with another greatest hits kind of thing for the first year or two. And then maybe a few, I can't believe this is running on Switch 2 kind of games in the next, like, few years. But other than that, then by, like, let's say 2029 or something, it's going to completely dry up and everybody's moved on to PS6 and you're not even going to get new Tekken or something. Tekken 8 wasn't even confirmed for Switch 2. That's like a game that's already been out for a while. Like, huh? I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate, again, the situation that we're kind of in right now. I am hopeful. Again, I think Nintendo might be being silly and saving some of these third-party reveals for their own showcase. But if the next showcase comes and goes and we don't hear about Black Ops 7 on Switch 2, I'm going to start to get going to be raising some serious eyebrows on if Nintendo's going to be able to actually get third-party support. Then again, you know, when FF7 Remake was talked about for Switch 2, they've constantly made mention of, look forward to more news on the FF7 Remake series on Switch 2. So I feel like Rebirth is all but guaranteed, and Part 3 might be day and date with the other consoles, but again, that remains to be seen. We don't really know what the plan is yet. Now, this kind of thought makes me wonder why. Like, why haven't we heard about a million Switch 2 ports coming from other third parties of games that are, you know, up and coming and not just games that recently came out or came out a few years ago? Well, I think it's one of three reasons. One, they are being saved for a Nintendo Direct. Two, Nintendo just didn't beg them because devs don't want to work on this thing for some reason. Or three, Nintendo didn't send out enough dev kits right away, so we're going to see a lot of third-party games for the next, 6 to 7 months that are not coming to Switch 2. Again, the Atlas mention kind of throws a wrench into that theory because, P4 Revival should just have its Switch 2 version announced. I'm kind of confused as to why it doesn't. But that aside, it's very weird, the situation right now. And, I kind of want to use this to pivot and talk about power on the console in general. I think the Switch 2 specs are immaculate. I have been playing plenty of Mario Kart, and I actually just started up Mario Odyssey, a game I have not played through in almost half a decade now, and I gotta say, the game looks phenomenal at 4K with the HDR enhancements. It looks beautiful, honestly, and other games run super great too. Like I said, Mario Kart runs pretty darn well, the eShop is pretty speedy. I haven't played the super intensive stuff straight from the PS5, but I can only imagine it runs pretty good. Apparently Street Fighter 6 runs pretty good from word of mouth, but I don't know. I'm just kind of weirded out as to why Nintendo hasn't talked more about their third-party stuff, but I'm also kind of worried that maybe things aren't going to be so great on the first-party side in the future. This is a 5, maybe 4 years down the road kind of worry, but think about the Switch, right? Stuff ran great, stuff looked great for the first little bit, but then at a certain point, I think the hardware kind of hit the wall. Devs were working on these games and were like, dude, why can't we not do more here? And they were pushing hard, but it led to stuff like NPCs in the background are moving at 2 FPS. The game just runs really choppily. The load times are really long, stuff just doesn't look quite right. It should look a little better, but it just doesn't because, the game was made under a different kind of scope, right? And, on Switch 2, any game that has gotten an enhancement kind of removes all that fluff just like it's nothing, Zelda and Pokemon now run at a rock solid 60 FPS and look fantastic, right? So, will Nintendo be able to manage 60 FPS as a baseline for every game on the Switch 2? I don't know, right? I hope the next 3D Zelda runs at 60 FPS, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe they go too far in the fidelity direction, and it doesn't even look that amazing. I don't know. These are just weird worries I'm having about the power of the system. I think the system is plenty powerful and can do a ton. I'm just worried that we're not going to be able to see that either thanks to Nintendo or thanks to third parties. But yeah, with that said, I don't know. What do you all think about the power of the Switch 2 and if third parties are going to keep supporting it or support it good, with big upcoming releases and not just ports of old games, right? We'll probably find out much more about the Switch 2's lineup for the remainder of the year in the coming weeks, if not days. But right now, I'm just a little worried. right? But we'll see how things shake out. Again, I don't really expect any dips in Nintendo's first-party output, even quality-wise. I mentioned, like, how games weren't running as good, but, like, I'll be real, I prefer a lot of Nintendo's output from the latter half of the Switch era over the former half. So, really, maybe things are only going to get better on the Switch 2. Who knows? But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Keep yourselves cornered for more on Nintendo, Switch 2, and other things gaming as well. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.